Hi, Tim.
Hey, Bryon, how are you?
You're good. It's good to see everybody.
Morning, afternoon, sorry.
Whatever time it is, right?
Yeah.
It's good to see Matt's haircut. Glad I'm here for that.
Nice
Someone's
haircut.
at least
Yeah.
someone's getting a haircut.
Looking good.
Yeah. Yeah. Scheduled a private, session, and probably looked like the craziest person in our building with just getting my haircut on the porch with a mask on. And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Looks good. Looks good. You don't need like a half a gallon of gel or whatever was used to hold that thing down before.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible what we were doing before to be able to get this in place. So, and so for the next 90 to 120 days, it'll just grow back out, and then, we'll schedule somebody to be able to get it coordinated again. It'll be great.
Again, good.
Hi, everybody.
Well, since we have a number of people on here, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, Matt and I were discussing, we're looking at like, what are some of the conversations that we hear, consistently with our clients and with, in conversation we're having on leadership. What are the topics that are out there that we haven't really had a discussion point around? And this is one that I think we've heard quite a bit. So the intention with today is for this is to be kind of like a brainstorm and a way to share information of what are you hearing, what are you thinking, as it pertains to what does the physical space look like, in our organizations in the future. As I know you are all aware, we've been going through something here that none of us would have predicted a handful of months ago. And we're, so we have lease space and that's affecting different people in different ways. So, Matt, anything you want to share as we're getting started?
Yeah, a couple of things. I just kind of want to put some grenades into the conversation to start. So one thing to think about is that I have the privilege and honor of coaching a young man in the country of France who's an active team leader in the state of New Jersey. I have the privilege and honor of coaching we're just about to get into that coaching relationship with a young man in the country of South Africa who's a team leader actively in the United Kingdom. And I have the privilege and honor of working with an organization, a market center, that for the next 90 days will have zero, and I mean none, zero physical space. And they're not a launch. So that's what I want to share. And, I want to get, I just want to get started with ideas and want to hear what people are seeing and just let people know that that's out there. Those things are happening currently, right? So let's talk about physical space, right? What's the future? What questions do we have? What's the future of that, Bryon? What do you think?
So, Matt?
Yeah.
It's Marybeth Olive in New Jersey. So with the rent spaces in New Jersey, it's kind of almost a gift that we could consider losing some of our space, our physical space, and maybe with the indie model, and that being an opportunity to have smaller locations if that's something that we choose inside of our territory. I guess my question is, what have we seen as far as I look at the team leader roles changing, and our support staff and our MCA world. So our support team, our executive team, well, those, the future of that is also going to play into how much space and what that looks like, right?
I think it will, yeah. So when we're looking at this today, I guess the place I think for us to start, right, is we all work in the business of working with agents. So when we're looking at the activity and kind of looking at what the way people have reacted or responded to what's going on here, what are we hearing from our current agents as far as what are the demands of space, or what have you experienced so far?
Bryon, we closed our office in, I think, the 13th of March, and some of our agents, a handful of them are still working from there, but almost everybody's been working from home. And we have agents who I don't think will go back to the office. So I think this is sped up everything that was going to happen, because they're like, I can work from home, I can Zoom, I can I can do things. They want to be able to pop in when they want to pop in. But I think I know of at least 3 that no longer want to pay $500 or $600 a month for their office.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, I just want to add to that. I know we're in Philadelphia, and we were a non-essential up until, late last week. So I'm happy to say that we're partially essential right now, which is a good thing. But what I've learned from our agents is a lot of agents, from what I'm hearing, are that they're doing, they realize they can do business outside of the office. Like, they don't have to come into the market center, and they're still getting the virtual training that we're offering. We're still operating at a high level. What I've learned is I don't need to be in the office to recruit, and not much has changed for me in that respect. And the third thing is, we recruited a indie brokerage, and that's turning into a business center. So instead of looking for another space, we're leveraging that at a lower cost point. So we've learned a lot over the past, 2.5 months.
Mm-hmm.
So Chris, to piggyback on that, because my Zoom background happens to be our market center, and you and I are partners in that business. And so, an interesting thought just to kind of throw in the mix here is, how many locations do we have in Philadelphia?
We have 1, 2, 3 business centers, 1 market center, and 7 mega agent offices.
Okay, so 11 locations. And so the future of a market center, like market center of the future based on space, and I appreciate you sharing that, Chris. One of the questions I had brought to this call too is, what if it looked like 11 locations? Right? What if it looked like 25 locations? I have the privilege of coaching London, England. That's a big city, right? They're represented on this call right now. One of the things that we've talked about is, city of 9-10 million people, do you have 40 to 60 mega agent offices? Just a thought, right? Of could it look like that? Now, I think that takes us down a different road of space plus the value proposition. One question that I had based on both of you sharing is, have you seen the physical space affect the value that people are experiencing, that agents are experiencing? Meaning, or differently put,
No.
Are people asking for a lower cap or to pay a different split because they don't have access to space? Are you hearing that type of communication?
I haven't heard, maybe with the exception of 1 or 2 agents, asking if they're going to get any type of relief on the on desk space or office space. Yeah. Other than that, all the agents haven't said one thing about fees, about office space, or anything. We've been pretty proactive with trainings and stuff and trying to add as much value as we can. So to answer your question, no, not really.
Okay, so you haven't seen it. Has anybody else heard that pushback where, hey, I can't be physical, so I shouldn't be paying this cap?
Rob Talbot. Go ahead.
Yeah, we've certainly, in Los Angeles County, we've certainly had the pushback of what's office rent going to look like. We just did a survey, as a matter of fact, because it was coming up so much with our agents. They're on enough of these calls discussing what other market centers are doing that we just sent out a survey to our agents where we're asking them, if there was to be a reduction of space, what scenarios would be the best approach to compensating for that? Like, reduced office space. What would maybe if they agreed to use ancillary services as part of the reduced cap, a couple different options as far as what we could do to provide that. The other thing that we're doing as well, because we have been asked so much, was looking at the possibility of like a cell phone plan where what's good for my grandmother is not necessarily good for my teenager. So we need different, opportunities for them, right? They're having 3 structures for comp plan. And maybe that structure is where their split's a little higher if their cap's a little lower, and their cap's a little higher, their split's a little lower, and things like that. So we're exploring that for sure.
I think space as value is an interesting conversation. I don't think anybody, Bryon, we normally start these conversations by saying nothing that's said on these calls are, products of MAPS coaching or KWRI. We normally do a disclaimer, right? Or an asterisk. on that. And I think what's important is what works for one person, what they're talking about, doesn't work for the entire world represented on this call. And yet, what I did like in what you said, Rob, is that you are preemptively saying to your agents, if this happens and we make this decision, what would value look like to you to compensate for that? That's interesting. That's it. That approach is scalable.
Yeah, the thing that we could have done a better job starting this, honestly.
Yeah, we didn't. It wasn't great. It was a haircut conversation.
Yeah, so. But the point of this is, right, who has the answers of what the market center of the future is going to look like? Does anybody have a real clear crystal ball that you can see all of this?
Yeah, give me his number or her number, please.
Yeah, so the point is, this is a conversation of people's opinions of what they're hearing and what it could be, right? It doesn't mean that there's an answer. Nobody has a clear picture of exactly what it's going to be. So you're going to hear things that go like, "No, that would never work here." Okay. Think about it and make that decision. That's your local market. You understand that way better than anybody else that's on this call or on this Zoom conference, right? These are things to think about. So this is not an answer forum. This is more like an exploratory forum. And in fact, we have a guest on here, Christina Toole, and I'd love to just hear just briefly, Christina. Christina's been a part of designing a lot of market centers, designing the physical space. I'm curious to hear, have you had conversations with market center owners you've worked with in the past or anything of their concern and, just a kind of a brief description of kind of what you're hearing and thinking as far as this goes too.
Sure. I'm hearing everything. I think that, a lot of market centers, most of the clients that I was in the middle of, or some of them were actually building. So that's a whole other proposition. I mean, you've got a building that you're building and it's really hard to, shift at that point. Although because we design them very flexibly and able to subdivide that kind of thing, we have outlets and we have ways to kind of address that. But I think for the most part, people are obviously reining in their spending and we're doing some changes as far as the cost analysis. But they're also trying not to think too short term. We might be doing social distancing for a year or two, but when you are, remodeling an office or embarking on a large project like that, you're thinking 5-10 years ahead. So you're really past this situation and you're trying to develop the office of tomorrow, for the next decade. So I would say, yes, short-term thinking. There's a lot of fear. I think my Keller Williams clients have a better handle on fear. You're just better at mindset and not, knee-jerk reactions. You're able to kind of take all the information and go, okay, well, this is what the next 18 months are going to look like, but let's also look past that.
I appreciate that. I think over time there's been a trend, at least from market centers I've seen, we used to have like really large agent offices. We used to look at like agents want to have 4 or 5 people in an office. What are we hearing on that? What are we thinking on that, I guess?
Yeah, and again, I think that there are some market centers who are full steam ahead, probably because of where they are in their investment and they don't have a lot of choice. They're going full steam ahead and they know that the next couple of years are going to be bumpy. But like somebody said earlier, nobody has a crystal ball. We're all doing the research, but nobody can really say for sure exactly what things are going to look like. I think absolutely there's going to be far more people remote working than there ever was before. And, Keller Williams was already on that edge as far as technology to where you could do more with a lot less people. So the ability to, sell real estate is probably not going to hinge on the hundreds and hundreds of agents packed into, 14,000 square feet anymore. In the short term, having space is not a bad thing. It allows you to social distance. But in the long term, really thinking about how to have dual usage out of your spaces, flexibility out of your spaces to be able to rent certain segments of your space, co-working situations. So the ability to build flexibility in, I think is going to help people. But yeah, I think, for the next, again, 18 months, 2 years, we're going to see a lot more people working remotely. But on the flip side, everybody's going crazy at home. They've got kids, they've got pets. And I think agents in particular have that personality where they just crave it. They crave that social interaction. A lot of my meetings, my web meetings I'm having with people in real estate are going longer than normal because they miss it. They miss the conversation. So I think younger agents in particular are a lot more social. And when we're building an office, we're looking at that too. So I think we can't forget that some people are going to need those spaces. They're going to need that space to come back to.
Christina, I'm curious about how you're seeing people look to repurpose space if they're in a building mode, right? Or if they're in a place where they have a large space, right? And they're looking to repurpose that space, right? And contacting you to do so. We know that Austin Southwest was in a conversation about putting in a cafe, right? Essentially a coffee shop, right? Into their space, before all this literally like started the construction and then stopped it, right? When this happened, to be able to do that. And so I get curious about if you're hearing people have conversations about a WeWork style environment or a co-working style environment in their space, how they're adding things or repurposing space that either is already existing or when they're building, shifting into that concept. Are you seeing any of that?
Absolutely. In fact, I've been seeing that for 3 years now. I have been hearing from my Keller Williams clients, and actually a lot of my clients, that, after the election or before the election, we were just on such a high for such a long time that people were already starting to think about the shift. And they wanted to be ready. So co-working was absolutely a conversation. Obviously, no one could have predicted, okay, well, if you're co-working, you have all these strangers in and out of your office and there's a germ situation. So now it's a little bit different in terms of co-working. But yes, I've had clients build their office in a way that, I have some slides here that might help. I've got some floor plans. I don't know if you wanted me to shift that to the end, but subdividing your office in a way that someone can maybe use a key card to get into the open area, bullpen type space. It enables you to not only lease that space to agents, but to other people as well. People who maybe they just lost their office space and they have 4 or 5 team members that they want to bring in and work to. And also, just thinking about the building envelope itself and, okay, if we were going to subdivide this space, how would we do it? So, that's paying attention, obviously right now, if you're building, to things like, where is the HVAC and where is that dividing line that I could cut this wall? Using a lot of movable walls, glass walls, they're not cheap. They're not cheap. And I would say most of my Keller Williams clients don't go that route. But for those that do, they have built-in flexibility because you've got a wall that you can literally pick up and move in a weekend. So that helps too.
So Christina, I appreciate you sharing that. I think, I'm looking around the screen, I'm seeing a lot of people nodding and going like, yeah, this is helpful information. I'm also, aware of our time today. So if we could, I think we may have some more conversation in a future session like this. Maybe we do the same thing, a week from now or something. If this is a valuable conversation for people, right? Those of you that are here, right? You came onto this platform for a reason. So, what questions do you have, or what concerns do you have for physical space that you may want to hear others' opinions or thoughts on? And Christina, I'd love your thoughts on these as well. So, if you could either put in the chat or unmute and talk. That'll help me to know what you're thinking.
I guess I'm curious about the training that, our typical digital sales. We're doing a digital sales rally now. We're doing all of our classes via, Zoom. Will that change? Do some of us have plans to integrate some physical classes and then while keeping maybe a Zoom schedule for those that are plugging in because it's more convenient for them? I'd like to hear maybe what's going on in the country for that.
I can answer that,
Kath-
Mary Beth. We have a green screen, like we've painted a wall green. And so you can come in physically. We have the table separated, but it's still a Zoom class, so it can still be recorded, so that time can be leveraged. We're just in front of the computer and putting it on the big projector screen. We're in the middle of doing a build out too, Bryon, and there was about 1,100 feet of flex space that we're using. We were going to make it a real estate school and or meeting space. And so we had a couple of vendors. We're doing like a monthly subscription type situation with an annual commitment. And so for X amount of dollars, they can have that space so many times, depending on which category they pick. And so we actually were just in there doing a walkthrough last week, and in looking at it, I was like, wow, with social distancing and this being a classroom, we need now to put in some fixed cameras probably. And so that was one change that we made, was to get some different cameras in the room so that the audience can be seen, the speaker can be seen, and then it could be more useful to entrepreneurs or business owners to come and use that space as like a recording studio almost as well.
Love that.
One of the, I'm Kathy Manchester, OP in Greater Portland, Maine. And one of the things we've done is we're looking at subletting our huge training center that we had and bringing everybody. We have a smaller, which was our productivity coaching room, and we're going to make that the main training center because we feel we're so geographically large that there's a lot of folks that will continue to Zoom in to all partners meetings and training sessions. So we're seeing that we're probably not going to need the large education space that we did, and we can sublet that out and downsize that way and multi-purpose our training center as our productivity space as well.
Nice, Kathy.
Yeah, so Gary, what I've heard from a lot of people that I've been coaching during this time is, Gary's been talking about this concept of, we've done things in the past, we've been physically based and digitally enhanced. And he's been talking about shifting to that idea of being digitally based and physically enhanced. And I see a lot of market centers shifting to that mentality of seeing that, this kind of forced everybody to get onto a digital platform and say, how do we communicate and get people engaged? And a lot of people have seen more engagement, or different types of engagement in that way, and are learning from it and saying, okay, well, how do we continue that and then have that physical element that actually enhances what we've been doing here for the last couple of months?
Bryon, just to speak to that, I read the book suggested by Jay Papasan called Remote, right? And it was written by the founders of Basecamp in 2014. And here I am listening to this book like, whoa, this is revolutionary. And I'm like, dang, this is 2014. Like, we are behind. With respect, like those concepts and ideas are out there, and they've been out there for a long time. We are now, when people say, hey, we're a technology company, and I know a lot of us push back, well, what do you think now? Right? So the point to that is that as we step more into that, it's how are we learning is what I'm asking myself. Like, how am I taking my mindset to a place where I can accept it, where I can see, where I can ask the question. And so I think once we get to that point, then I think we could ask the question, how do we disrupt with space? We're like, how does physical space become disruptive? And like, I loved what Kathy was talking about in an internal repurpose. And one of the things that I've seen people do is like, video, production-based video is one of the biggest things that's going to move forward in real estate. Would everybody agree with that? That video communication, right? So, okay, all of us either have a design part of our house that's a background that we can control, or a digital background right now because we understand how important that is professionally. So, I think some of the things I wrote down is, what are we doing to sublease our space? Can we do that, right? Physically, right? Can we condense our space, sublease, get out of some of our space to be able to do that? That's one, if we choose to do so. Number two, can there be shared spaces even within our own organization? Meaning that like agents have a large team. I remember when I was a team leader, agents would argue, well, I want the cubicle right outside my offices, and I want my office, and I want the other cubicle. I'm like, damn, you want the whole place. Like, okay. And so now thinking back to that of like, okay, now those two offices next to each other, right? Where there's two separate teams. Could there be 4 teams, right, in that physical space? I love the idea of a glass wall, a movable wall, Christina, is so smart. And it has me thinking about all kinds of different geometric ways that you could change an office, right, by moving
Absolutely.
walls, right?
It's fun, really, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, so what does that look like? How can we sublease? How can we get rid of space? How can we partner people on space, right? How can we repurpose it? So the idea of like, when I was talking about recording, I've seen some market centers develop recording studios.
Mm-hmm.
So KWI in the
has a great
basement,
one.
right? They have the film, right? They have KW video.
Mm-hmm.
And some market centers are building their version of a KW video, their version of a room to film in, to film their listing presentation, whatever that is. So can you take space and change it that way? Could you do co-work, right, with a space as well? So I think we start asking our question of options of what we can take on within the space that we have, and looking at the creativity. I mean, the truth of the matter is we're real estate professionals. So it's what we do, right? Is we're challenged by this industry to be able to look at it that way. And yesterday when my barber was cutting my hair on my back deck, right? He quit his barber shop and now he's cutting hair in people's homes, right? I said, well, what are you going to do? He said, it's kind of interesting. There's this company that rents out a big space, a big kind of barber space to individual barbers, and they're compartmentalized by chair. And so what you do is you pay them a lease for your X by X room that has your chair in it.
It's Remax.
Yeah.
Remax for haircuts.
I thought that's so interesting because what he's subleasing is not an entire building. He's subleasing that slot. That's his chair. And he's like, listen, I can control the safety of that environment.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I can control how clean it is. It's small. I can take that on. People believe it's safe and do that. So I think about that and I'm like, what does that look like in our world? Just some of the thoughts that I'm having, just writing down and listening to where you guys are. I'm wondering what people on this call are thinking. The only other thing that I think is interesting is that city-based or large, like Kathy was saying, large geographic territory, right? Some market centers are really big, right? The Maine market center is the market center in Maine, right? So this is a big place, right? What do multiple mega agent offices look like as a market center? Does it not instead of one building, what does it look like to right? And here's the best thing about that. What happens in a mega agent office? Who carries the cost?
They do.
Matt,
Yeah.
one of the other things that we did, we had a small business center, and there was a landlord that owned part of the building that rented out some of the other offices as well. So
Yeah.
we swapped that over. So the our Keller Williams rented just a conference room and provided internet, photocopier, rented the conference room, and we had our agents rent directly from the landlord.
Mm-hmm.
So we decreased our cost on that one business center to $200 a month. And of course, we also paid for the realtor, the right to have the MLS in that building and the sign out front. But we cut our cost, and more importantly, we cut our liability down. Because we have another crisis like this, it's not our skin that we have a vacant office in. It's the landlord that has that. And our costs are only $200 a month there. The other thing we did was we took every outside business center that we did and cut square footage.
I love that.
I love
I
that.
love that.
One of the things I'd love to share, and I love what you just shared, Kathy, on cutting the cost that way. I know for us, we've got about 10,000 square feet right now, but we also have right of first refusal in the building. So we have our escrow office, our mortgage office. We're in the process of relocating our mortgage into the office, moving our escrow downstairs and kind of downsizing in that way. But what we really started looking at was if we're going to bring in additional people to sublease, we're looking at how can they provide some type of additional benefit to the market center. So it'd be either some type of auxiliary business or some type of service that our agents would be interested in. So we even started exploring, I know there's a market center in Austin. I think that they have they have like a fitness person on site, and they've got a masseuse on site and things like that. So we're kind of exploring what that could look like with having auxiliary businesses that our agents need, right? Insurance, financial, but also some of this other piece. We have a video room. We're now making that video room into a video room / tech lab with office hours for a technology concierge to kind of do the technology setup for our agents. We are not going back to a traditional model of only in-person trainings. All of our trainings from this point forward will always have some type of live streaming capability. And that's just, we want to make sure that we're able to reach additional agents, but it's been huge for recruits, right? So to get recruits onto the digital trainings. We're doing a monthly webinar that's really geared towards getting outside agents onto it to kind of set up that recruiting call and things like that as well. So that's something that we're definitely not changing. But I'd say the most impactful thing that we've done for us is, we've kind of been exploring what is it that's happening in the market. And we did an anonymous phone survey of the top 300 agents in our market that are not with us. And we asked them questions on what do they think the future of real estate is going to look like. We went into everything from compensation models to physical space to what technology do they want to provide. Why are they with the brand they're with? What would cause them to leave? And I'd say maybe 25% of them answered that. And it's been amazing for us to kind of get a feel for what are the agents out in the market that are producing? What do they see as the future? And we're finding that those that have some type of home office space, they want their home office space and they want to have the offices be a place where they can conduct business in terms of conference rooms, in terms of auxiliary services, marketing, technology. And then there are 50% of them that are maybe, some of the younger agents or that don't necessarily have bigger homes where they have their own individual office, or even some that, have kids at home that want physical office space. And so it's giving us a little bit more insight into how much, physical space do we actually need, but also some ammo to kind of go at them with. And now we're in the middle of conducting that same anonymous survey, but for independent brokerages. So we can get some insight there as well, but that's been really helpful for us.
Monica, I appreciate you sharing that, because it's answering a question that we've been talking about with a lot of the people here on the screen of like, what data are you using, or you could say data. I'm told, Matt told me, I don't know. Some people say it wrong, so you have to ask them which ones say it wrong.
Yeah, you got to figure out which one's right on that one.
Yeah. So what are you using to actually make the decisions that you make, right? Is it an emotional decision? Are you reacting to something the way that you understand it, or you actually have the information from the source that you're looking to, serve or looking to provide an option for? Do you actually have real information from them to make these decisions and make the right decisions that are for your market? So, so I've heard of some people doing surveys like that, and you may get some results or results from that, which I think is really important. The other thing is truly, think of this in our recruiting conversations, or even setting up a forum similar to this, with the top 100 agents or top 200 agents in your market. Could you have interaction with them about what are they seeing in the market, and have kind of topic-based masterminds similar to this in your local market to be asking some of those questions and get information and reaction? Frankly, that's what we're doing here, right? If we can hear from great leaders like you and come up with, solutions, or what are we seeing, do you believe that we can all move forward in a way that allows us to make great decisions? The same thing exists in your local market, and agents are looking for that. And how many of you already have that going on, have that happening, that somebody else is leading your local market?
Well, Bryon,
Nobody.
In northern New Jersey, there's an awesome OP that I have the privilege of partnering with that just did the first indie mastermind.
Love it.
And contacted all of the local indie brokerages and put together a mastermind on wealth building and the future of the market. Exactly this conversation. And 17 independent owners showed up. It's wild to think, right, in that conversation, what that looks like. And she was able to hold a space as a $50 million producer, 30, 40, $50 million producer right over her career, right? And an operating principal and an investor and a real estate owner and all these other things who's transacting different areas of the market. She's able to hold a powerful space of, here's some things I'm going through. This is what we're doing in real estate. This is what are you seeing, right? And position it from that perspective. Where do we go forward from here? I do want to go back to one other thing on space, because I think Marybeth earlier on brought something up from kind of how we opened the call and just kind of threw some things out there, which is space also includes how much space do we need for our people and for our personnel. And I think there's different ways, our leadership team, there's different ways to look at that. One way to look at it is, how does that look? Where do we go? Where do people go? The other way that I would challenge you to look at it is, do you need people to be in your space? And so if the answer is no, because by the way, most of us I haven't been in KWRI since March 13th.
Neither.
Right? I haven't been in the building since March 13th. So if the answer is, and last time I checked, I still work at KWRI, and yet that email might be turned off. So we'll see. The point is, if the answer is no, then are you restricting your hiring pool for talent?
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot of people go, well, I'm in fill in the blank area of the country. We hear this a lot in coaching, right? And then they go on this diatribe about why their area sucks and there's not enough talent, and it's too small or whatever it is. With love and respect, that's not true. There's talent in your street. And yet, if you believe that, or you're caught in that limiting belief, what has this done to that belief?
Gone.
Right? And how big can you go? So I think part of thinking about space, like that book Remote had me really thinking. Some people were saying like, oh, I feel like if I'm going to work remote, I'll get paid less. And some of the companies in tech offer people the ability to work remote full time and pay them more in order to get them. And I went, whoa, that's the opposite of what people think. If you're at home, I'm going to pay you less. These tech companies are saying, no, you work at home and I pay you more. And that's why you choose me.
Yeah. Matt, to that point, I'm about an hour and a half from my market center. And so that puts me 3 hours on the road every day.
Yep.
And I have found just great efficiency being able to not get on my desk at 7:30, but I get on at 8 o'clock and I don't get off until 6 o'clock. And I am highly efficient, get more meetings in than ever. So It has made me rethink, how would our support staff, I know agents love the energy, and bringing energy through this platform has been a challenge. And yet I think in the leadership world, I think we could have more classes on how do we bring that energy and do fun things through a virtual platform, and we could get the same kind of, if not more, impact.
Well, just to share one thing, and I know Rob's going to jump in here right on that, but just to kind of get you thinking even more, we have 6 bold coaches right now that with changes and transitions in the bold platform as to where we are today, they're actually interviewing for other roles or opening themselves up to other roles in the company. You think those are pretty talented people? Maybe, kind of, right? I do, right? And I'm joking and asking that question. I know we all believe that people are at that level are talented in scripts and dialogues and what they can do. Well, they're all over the country, and here I am, even in saying what I just said, asking them, hey, where are you based? Who should I refer you to? And I kind of turned that off and went, wait a second, why am I doing that? You need, like, just send it out. They can work anywhere. It's not like they can be in person with you anyway. Or if they can, it's going to be a hybrid model. So Marybeth, maybe what it is that you're in the office 1 day a week in the future, right? Or 2, and you work 3 days from your home. That's what tech companies build, enormous organizations that are international on that model, right? And they have hundreds of thousands of people that work in models like that. So it's possible. People are already doing it. We just have to wrap our head around it. And now we're starting to get to experience it. Rob, what did you have on that?
I was just going to add another perspective is that make sure that we're considering the experience level. I have some friends that work for Google, for instance, and Apple, and absolutely they can work remotely. And I have many friends that do. I've got one friend that works for Apple. He lives in Hong Kong, and he just flies home once a month, and goes to office meetings. And then there's another friend that works for Google, and she talks about how Amazon and Google, they're creating these environments to where people don't want to leave. They're having massage therapists. They're having gyms there because, and these are her words that resonated with me, because of the culture. She said it creates a culture that galvanizes people. And so she used a word, and I forget how she did it. I'm going to check in with her and get back to you, but it was something along the lines of product versus personal, making it personal or just making a product delivery. And it made me think of a few different businesses or industries, like churches, for instance. I went for a walk the other day with a pastor through our neighborhood. We stayed far apart, but he said they're taking on more space right now. They're using gymnasiums and so on, because as they're getting ready to go back to normal services, they have to go from 400 people in a sanctuary to 200 people in a sanctuary. And now they're going to be leasing out a gymnasium at a neighboring school, because instead of back-to-back services, they have to use the gymnasium. So they're going to actually need more space to space people and get people in. And he said it's an overwhelming demand for people to get back into the physical space and proximity of people. They want to hug people. They want to talk. And he said the virtual thing is not working for his people. And I thought about my market centers, because so many parallels with the church is we need to maybe evolve and pivot our market centers into an environment that creates an experience level. Like, I think if Disneyland opened tomorrow, there'd be a line around the corner because of the experience that it provides, right? I mean, it's high level experience. How is it that we can create that personal experience, not just a product experience? Like, if I call Brad because I need an answer to a contract question, I can do that if I'm in the office and knock on his door. I can call him on the phone. But when I want to experience the organic part of the relationship with him, just be in proximity with him, I'll take that in person all day long. Just listening to him and saying hi to him. And I think that we'll need to pivot our market centers into still providing that experience while acknowledging that not everyone's going to come in and use the space the way they used to.
You made another point that's really important. So many things in there are great. One thing that it triggered for me is we talked about repurposing, subleasing, right? What people need, having people outside, reducing space, right? Getting rid of space, making changes to space, going to MAO offices. Another thing is, right, what if people need to take your entire space for a temporary period of time? Right? Like what you're saying with gymnasiums, right? What these churches are doing, they're taking a whole space for a period of time and giving it back. Right? So are there businesses in your community that need a portion or all of your space for a period of time? And could you work out, it might be a church, right? Depending on the size of our market. So that's another interesting resolution. And I understand the point was made inside of, right? We also need to understand who we're working remotely with, because we've seen some people have not done this successfully, and it's a challenging transition, but without a doubt. And then also, how are we creating an in-person experience, right? And what does that look like? Creating a place where people really love to be able to go in and attend that office. I think that's really interesting.
I just see so much of our value proposition as market center centric. At least that's how it's been for my market centers, is whether it's an Ignite training, a Bold training, access to the broker, the market center has kind of become the centric spot for everything that is our culture. And now we've disrupted that into a digital world. And so we're learning, we're pivoting.
Bradford, you had something to share?
Yeah, no, we, a couple of things. One of the questions I asked our staff was, what is an efficiency that has come from working remotely that we never want to give up? So, multiple members of our staff have realized that there are aspects of their job they can do so much more efficiently if they do it from home. So, whether it be an ATL who's booking appointments, and they just crank them out on a Monday, and then they're in the office Tuesday through Friday, servicing those appointments, but still available for that pop in, hey, do you got a minute question for a newer agent kind of a thing. And then also being able to share office space between a couple of different roles. We've got director of operations and an agent services, and they basically share the same space. So there's a reduction in footprint that could come from that. So, I think if you've got the right people in the right seats, you can just ask the question, like, what, be honest, look in the mirror and go, how is this working more efficient? I know that there's a lot of efficiency that's come to the TL role for me. And at the same time, I also know I thrive off of energy of people around me. So I certainly don't want it to be 5 days a week working from home, and some working from home will probably create a more efficient team leader.
I love what you said, Brad. One thing that I wrote down is I wrote your question down. I also wrote down earlier, what is an ideal scenario for you as a leader when it comes to space? Because I think sometimes what we don't ask is, what does the leader want? Right? It's not, listen, we all work to serve our people. It's not about, right, what our decision. It's just, you have thoughts and you have a great opinion and you have a great mindset and idea, and right, and you're seeing a lot more often than individual agents are privy to. So what do you see as ideal? Right? And what would be the best one? And that's kind of a different perspective on some of what you were sharing there as to how people do that. What I've found is that for work that I need to do on my own, it's 10 times more efficient. What I've found, like Marybeth said, is I'm getting my commute time back, right? So I can do more of that. What I've also found is that it's disrupted my schedule at a very high level with my wife and with my family. So that had to be completely reorganized, right, for scheduling. And the other thing that it created, right, it's created is collaborative work for me personally is more difficult. Mm-hmm. Right? So in a physical space where I can talk to multiple people and get something done quickly, the whole idea of scheduling 6 people to be on a call, right, on a Zoom call, and then be able to do that, I find to be more complicated, right? And that's my personal experience. So what's happening in MAPS, I'm impressed on a daily basis and frustrated in our operations. And I'm a part of the leadership of it, right? I'm impressed by what our people can do, and I'm constantly looking for how do we resolve this. Given more time, I think we would. However, that's the experience that I have, and I heard you explaining a lot of that, right? And what you're seeing and what you're experiencing with your people.
I will say, in terms of the space piece, that our transition to virtual. First off, I would argue, that's something that some of our competition has touted as, look how awesome we are because we do all this virtual training. In Warren Buffett terms, that is not a moat. That is not a moat. We were able to shift the best training calendar in the frickin' state virtual in a flip of a switch, right? So I think we have to be aware that, the fact that it's virtual isn't a moat. The quality of it, the ability to communicate how robust it is, those things can be, moat-like for a business. But our engagement is way up because of going virtual. Now, some of that for us, like Kathy said, I work in Kathy's office. She is my boss. I am boss man because she labeled me boss man. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So, but the state of Maine is the size of all of the rest of New England. So it's a lot of geographic. So the second we put some of that stuff virtual, we had a lot of people in the hinterland that were hungry for engagement on that stuff. But some of our most avid consumers are people that live minutes from the market center. So there's aspects of it that are never going away. I now have to deliver, and I don't know if any of the other TLs on here have experienced this, but I'm delivering an office meeting level of content daily with what used to be once a month.
I'll tell you, one of the things that Brad did with that's really worked very well is at 8:30 every morning, he's on with all of our agents for about an hour of mindset delivery and practical stuff. And Brad, what would you say our average attendance is at that meeting?
About 80. We've capped, we've hit about 120, 130 before, but 80 is about the average.
Yeah, which is, that's just done so much in getting all our people in the right mind to go to work every day. Right. And you're never, if you had an 8:30 meeting in the office every day, you would never get that number of people to show up. But it's got everybody in my day starts at 8:30 with Brad, and then I go to work. And I think productivity has soared because of that. We also had, how many folks did we have in Bold Pivot, Brad?
260. 260
in Bold Pivot. And part of that was because Brad was talking to them every day.
Right.
One of the things that I would share, two other things I'd share about space is, one, I've seen a lot of market centers like the one where I'm an investor, right? And I'm using it still. This is this virtual background. We talk about holding a space or creating a space where they've gotten into, okay, everybody's on there. Let's create our market center specific virtual background, right? And as silly as that is, it's cultural, right? It's connected. It's right. It's this version of that. So I thought that was a cool step, right? As you know, what does that look like? Now, here's another thing about space that's interesting. It's not necessarily our space. It's about the spaces that we have to hold when we travel. We're all in leadership. So the amount of traveling that we do, right? When just take a second and laugh at yourself at this. Think about all the times that people have asked you, what do you do? And they're not in Keller Williams or real estate. Okay, anyway, right, back to right how fun that conversation is. So if you think about how much you travel, how much you do, how much you engage, how much, right, our schedules, our lives are really crazy. They really are wild, right? And you do these things at such a high level. Here's what's interesting, just as a win in the space of not leaving. The average trip that you would take to Spring Masterminds, and I am going to use that example just as where we are next, would cost you a couple $1,000s in flight and hotel. Would you agree with that?
Every time.
Okay. So the price for Spring Mastermind this time is $49. So for $2,450, you could bring 50 recruits. For $2,450 before, you could bring one. I know leaders that'll pay it out of their own pocket. Just with respect, there's no judgment here. I'm not casting that over everybody, right? I know that in many states you can do it through marketing, you do it through advertising. And it's not because I'm a MAPS employee. I'm also a coach and all these other things. I'm a leader and investor in a market center. I look at that and go, that's a pretty darn good use of our money. Because with love and respect, if I can put your butt on a plane and it costs the same amount as me putting 50 people in my own organization or that I'm recruiting in an experience, it's not the same as in person, yet I like those odds. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Mega Camp's going to be done that way too, right?
Well, I cannot affirm or deny that statement. The point to this is, right, that was a good attempt. The point to this is that watch out for KWI's announcements on all things moving forward. So I think that the biggest thing that you got to look at is we were spending money on a space that we held physically, and the same amount of money for that. I understand we're in different financial situations right now, and yet many of you, you also know is look at your profit. And let's just be really honest. Did you expect it to be as good as it is for many of you? Probably not. Probably not. So you if we told you everything's back on, there's a cure tomorrow and everybody's going to Spring Mastermind, you'd be on a plane. If we could convince you that it was safe and you'd spend the money to do it. So I think that's another thing, Bryon, just to get into that, and thinking about space, is there's spaces that we physically held that for the same cost that we invest before, we can bring an army of people to experience and move things forward that way too.
So as we're getting here to the top of the hour, is that what they call it? I think they call it the top of the hour. I know some of you are moving to another mastermind with some other guy, Gary Keller, I think. Yeah, he's doing something. So if you're a part of that, I know you're gonna be jumping to that. So this is an interactive part of what we're gonna do today. So if you're on camera, that's cool because I can see you. If you're not, you're gonna have to put something in the chat because I can't see you, probably because you're like eating lunch or something. So first of all, the information you got today, right? Like what I heard is it would be helpful to have one of these probably in the future saying like, what do our market center roles of the future look like? If you agree with that, you can put your hand up in the air or in the chat, you could put like yes, or you could say no, that's fine too. But if do you agree that it's, market center roles of the future would be a good topic here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Would it make sense to have another session like this about physical space?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Dig deeper, look at other opportunities, explore some of the questions we uncovered here. And I also want to hear kind of like when you think about these businesses in the future, what are other topics that would be helpful for you? Because I know I don't have the answers, but I have the questions. So anybody want to share that or put something in the chat? What other topics would be most helpful for you?
I would say the number one thing that I really want to look at, and this may pair into the roles of the future because this is a conversation that we're having, is we need to get our people using the technology. Okay?
Yeah.
implementation, I think one of the things that we're looking at is, I don't know about you guys, but I understand the technology. I use it every single day. I'm using Command all the time. I can go in and set up a Twilio number. I can move smart plans. And yet, I don't know, agents don't need to learn how to set up a Twilio number that they're going to do once. They just need to know how to use it. Right. And so we're moving to more of a tech concierge, like done for you type service, so that we can really focus our training on implementation and making money using the tech. And I think if we can get, our agents into the tech and get them engaged and show them how to really activate their database and how to, do a virtual open house, but loop in the technology with that, that's the game changer. And I definitely think that needs to be an area of focus, whether that becomes, what do the roles look like and what is the engagement that each, role has in that process. But that, I'd say it's been the number one thing on my mind.
Yeah. If this is going to be the new way that they have to do business, we have to be able to be a resource for them. And are you in the California area, Monica?
I am.
Okay, because Rich Rector was talking about going concierge.
Oh, that's my OP.
Okay. Thanks. Great idea.
You guys
Bryon, what'd you have?
Me?
Bryon Zapf, I thought came
Oh,
up.
yeah. Hey guys. Hey, yeah. Bryon Zapf, TO from Los Gatos in Northern California. I love what Monica just said too. We've been talking a lot about, virtual tours and things like that, and how we can really kind of guide our agents to do these tours at a really high level. I'd love to get some really cool tips and tricks at a super high level, how people are really killing it in this area, so that we can be way above and beyond, other agents in the area in our market. We want to be the ones that are leading the pack, really killing it. I'd love to, have conversations around that. And then also too, we're starting to set up, so we have 3 conference rooms and we have a training room that seats 50 people, 50 agents plus. And so we're starting to look at AV equipment and things like that, so we can continue to do Zoom trainings, sales meetings. Our sales meetings typically have 50 to 60 agents in person. Right now through Zoom, we have, over 100 agents that tune in. So we're going to continue to offer that. So we're looking at the best, highest level AV equipment, and we're a little challenged, to be honest. We're not sure who we can go to get guidance and things like that. So I'd love to, hear conversations about that, or, different ideas, brainstorming ideas to set up things at a super high level to really carry us forward into this new sort of age that we're all in.
So Bryon, I think that's excellent. I think physical space covers that. I also believe that probably Christina Toole may have a resource or referral. She just strikes me as somebody that would know a good person for that.
Who is that?
For Keller Williams, I actually, I really like to, I like to use
Sorry,
Office
I jumped
Depot.
on late, so I missed her. Sorry, Christina.
It's okay. Office Depot, believe it or not, because you guys are, they're a Keller Williams approved vendor. They obviously, they do the office supplies and the printing and that kind of thing. But they also have a technology department. And so one of the reasons I like to use them is because they give you guys just their steepest discount. So connecting, I don't know if you guys know Joe Lawson, or just kind of reaching out, through your account. He would be a good resource, and they've been able to help people nationwide. And you guys really have touched on a lot of the things that we talk about, and it's flexibility, connecting to the brand and culture, focusing on health and wellness and technology. So that's a really big one.
So I also appreciate that. Bryon, can I answer your question? What I'd like to see and do later on?
Yeah.
Vital signs. I'd love to have a mastermind on how we affect vital sign scores and move them forward and progress our market centers through those, as those are going to come out very soon, and be a conversation for the entire company. I'd love to have a mastermind, even in advance, right, within over the next couple of weeks, of looking at vital signs and seeing how we can proactively attack that.
Okay. So I heard a number of different things. Here's the good news. If you got something from Matt or I, you're definitely going to hear about these things happening in the future. If you got it from a different source, like if you got information about this and came on here today from something else, I can't control that. You can let your coach know that you want to know about it. You can also get on a distribution list that Matt and I have, right? Email me, brionmartin@kw.com, or email Matt, mteter@kw.com. If you got it from somebody else, it's all good. You can continue getting it from them. if you want to make sure that you hear about the things that we do moving forward each week here, just get on one of those lists and we'll make sure to continue sending it out. If there's anything else that I can be doing or Matt can be doing, I'm going to speak for Matt and just say we're here. We're here to help and support you. Anything else, let me know. Thank you all for spending your time today. We'll talk soon. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah.